Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on your own time in the evening or in the morning, depends on when you are. My name's Natalie. I'm the GM of Great Walks of New Zealand here in New Zealand. So ignore Sam's lovely Australian accent, who is our marketer over in Aussie. But we do actually here in New Zealand based. I'm up in Auckland, and our director and guide extraordinaire, Steve, that you'll be hearing from much later, is actually down in the South Island. So we've got one in the north, one in the south. We cover the country, and we're going to take you on a bit of a journey of the New Zealand Great Walks. And then we're going to dive deep into our best of Kepler, Milford and Routeburn to give you a good overview of probably one of our most popular trips that combines all the icons. So sit back, grab yourself your cup of tea, or make sure you've got one, or your glass of wine, and we'll head on through our great walks. So we're going to focus on hiking in New Zealand and what that's all about, which island to choose from. Steve and I will probably debate at the moment whether it's north or south that's best, but I am moving south, so probably south. Where the New Zealand Great Walks are and what they are, seasons and weather, guided versus self-guided, which is a question we get asked very, very often, with or without a pack. And then we'll deep dive into our top trip of best of Kepler, Milford and Routeburn with Steve. So what is hiking in New Zealand? Well, those of you that are in New Zealand and New Zealand based probably know very well that we are a country that is incredibly small, but incredibly diverse compared to a lot around the world. So we have a lot of things generally, world-class scenery, unique wildlife and nature. We have a cultural connection, accessibility, adventure and variety, and we pretty well provide a very much remote experience where you can actually, in a lot of places, be the only ones, have a complete digital detox, and really rest and unwind on your walk. So a couple of beautiful shots of our lovely land. And then the debate happens of whether you want the North Island or the South Island. And what are the differences? Well, there are actually plenty of differences. The North Island, of course, is pretty volcanic. There's a lot of volcano landscapes in the north. You could be feeling like you're standing on Mars as opposed to standing on an actual Earth-based island. A lot of geothermal activity. However, we also have tropical climates in parts. So the likes of the north or into the Coromandel, you will find more the tropical climate, being that further part north. Unique landscapes, diverse character, very different place to place from north to central and to the bottom of the North Island, and then from east to west coast. So there's a great diverse range of landscapes up in the North Island. South Island, very diverse landscapes as well. So you get the sunny south region in the northern part of the South Island up through Nelson and Marlborough, and probably the most sunshine hours in a year, or the record was that until recently. You also get the incredibly big mountains, probably not as big as some of the peaks around the world, but the alpine region of New Zealand is incredibly beautiful, incredibly remote, snow-capped peaks at times, glaciers, jagged mountains, ancient rainforests. Heading into Fiordland, you do get quite a lot of what we call goblin forest. So you do get quite diverse forestry through there. And you also get the remote beaches and the remote landscapes as well. So you go from wild, rugged west coast, and you have your incredibly white sand beaches up through the Abel Tasman as well. So very extremely different islands, but something to cater for everyone in every sort of what you're looking for, really. Then we have, what we call in New Zealand the Great Walks. And I think every walk can be a great walk. There are a lot of great walks that are not great walks. But the Great Walks in New Zealand are defined as 11 multi-day trails that are managed by the DOC, what we call Department of Conservation. So these are trails that have been set out. They're actually incredibly accessible trails. They have to be well maintained. They have to be well looked after. There has to be certain tick boxes that are ticked in order for it to become a Great Walk of New Zealand. And so there's a range of different experiences, again, depending on which of those great walks you might want to be doing. Also on your hiking experience, most of them are designed to be easy and manageable by most people. but there are some that are more rugged than others. So we'll just take you on a brief, quick guideline of what those are without diving too much into them. But we do cover most of them as well as part of Great Walks of New Zealand. The Tongariro Crossing or the Tongariro Northern Circuit, two different types of walks. The Tongariro Crossing is a day walk. It is an incredibly difficult day walk, so don't think it's easy because it's a day. It is very much climatic, different experiences, rugged at times, shaly at times, steep at times, and incredibly dramatic and beautiful. That view you may and or may not see. One of my colleagues did it the first time round and saw absolutely nothing. The second time round, when we did it as a group for our Christmas party, it was a beautiful bluebird day and you could see everything. So she had two very different experiences on a Tongariro crossing. And what people forget about New Zealand is that, it is still, although it's not high mountains, it is still mountains. And the weather can change incredibly quickly because of the winds prevailing across those mountains from one side to the other. And you really do need to be prepared. And there are some people that try to do a Tongariro crossing. It's a day walk. Let's just do it in trainers. And we would absolutely say not the way to go. But if you do want something that's a one-day walk and that ticks off a lot of bucket lists because it does do rainforest as well as the volcanoes, then this is the way to go. Lake Waikaremoana is basically a rugged, remote Great Walk, probably the least known and least done of the Great Walks that we have here in New Zealand. It is harder to get to. It's not as accessible driving wise or transport wise as some of the others, but incredibly beautiful regardless, and really a remote walk where you do need to have your wits about you and you do need to carry your full packs as well. The Whanganui journey is probably a great walk that is not a great walk. So why is it not a great walk? It's because you're actually canoeing. You're on a kayak, you're going down the river, and you're doing what is the great walk down that river. Beautiful landscapes, secluded, Maori culture. It has everything really. It's just not a walk. So you don't need to use your feet too much. You do get off your kayaks, you do go for a little wander, bridge to nowhere, have a little trail. There's a few little different towns and villages that you will wander through. You camp alongside the river, really comfortable, but it's gourmet camping. So you have nice meals and it really is something that's a little bit different. So those of you that are not overly walkable, this is one to do and tick off your list as a great walk. Abel Tasman, top of the North Island, or top of the South Island, up in the north is what I want to say, is the walk that is easy for families. So if you do have younger kids or you do have families, this is one of the trails that is very well defined. There's there's quite a few people on the trail, so it does get busy, especially over the summer season. It's popular. It's got beautiful beaches. You can stop for a swim. You can have a walk around. Lovely rainforest. Very nice coastal walking, and not too hard, not too steep, not too much of a gradient. So very easily accessible for those that have kids and families. You can do it as a shorter 3-day full straight walk day to day, or you can take rest days in amongst those. Heafy Track, also in the top of the South Island. This one is more of a full pack adventure for those of you that like to carry your own gear and have your own sort of adventure with a walk. Feel more like you're walking, more rugged. Is a coastal walk, goes through varying terrains as well. So you do have sort of the grasslands, you do have the coastal. You're staying in the dock huts along the way, but they're the Great Walk dock huts, so they're slightly better than just a regular hut. It is bunk shared accommodation with these. It is something we can pre-book though, so we do book you in. You don't have to worry about getting to the next one and seeing if there's a space available. There will be because we pre-book you in. But it is one of those full pack kind of walks that you just meander along and enjoy and just experience what it is to be out in the remote wilderness. This one did have a few issues a couple of years ago because of the weather, and the weather along that west coast can get a little bit wild and windy at times. And we did have to divert people. So it is something to be aware of when you are walking. that things happen and weather happens, and there are trails where sometimes there's too much water and you can't pass, or the snow comes in, and we just need to make very quick decisions and to actually divert you sometimes at times. This is one of them, but rugged Western New Zealand. Paparoa Track is also along that west coast line, and this is it's a walk that sells out and sells out year after year as well. Incredibly popular here in New Zealand, just as much as it is for those coming into New Zealand. A full pack hike again, so you're carrying your own gear towards the Paparoa. Not a long trail, quite a short trail. And there are others, so you could do, pardon me, a collection of walks from Abel Tasman. You could then connect into the Heaphy. You could then connect down to what is the Old Ghost Road, and then you could connect down to the Paparoa. So you could actually combine a number of trips together, back to back, and have a nice sort of 3-4 week adventure here in New Zealand, just walking along that western coast. Kepler Track, beautiful views. Steve knows these very well. This is his little homeland, and so I will leave him to explain the Kepler Track in detail to you. The Kepler Track is a longer trail, but on our iconic, you will do a shorter section, and these are the views that you will see on that trail. The Routeburn is also one of our icons, so I'll leave Steve to do a bit more of a spiel on that for you as to what you will experience when you're doing the Routeburn Track and the section of the Routeburn Track that we actually do. And the Milford Track, probably one of the most iconic that anyone will have on their list, and everyone has on their list. Kiwi, Aussie, around the world, doesn't matter. Everyone knows the Milford Track. They all know the Milford Sounds. They all want to see this exact icon. I have stood in this exact place looking up at Mitre Peak, and I'm sure a lot of other people have as well. Not sure we all have that same photo because weather plays a part. But yeah, most of the time, and sometimes you're lucky enough to see the top of that peak. And otherwise you can see the cascading waterfalls, and it's just magical down there. And then we've got the Rakiura Track. So that is down at the bottom of New Zealand in Stewart Island. It is remote wilderness down there. It is sometimes a track where you do get bogged down because of the amount of water that you're trekking through, or the amount of mud that you're trekking through. But a lot of it has come a long way because it is a great walk. So there are trails out there, they're properly defined. There are smaller sections that you can do, or you can do a full loop of the island as well in the Rakiura. And the Tuatapere Hump Bridge, this is also down in Fiordland, so down the bottom of the South Island, just past Invercargill, or out west from Invercargill. So you would fly into there or fly to Queenstown, travel down. You can combine this, and a lot of people do combine this with what Steve will tell you with the Kepler Milford Routeburn, and double back-to-back these trips. So down there, I mean, the Humpridge Track is a short 3-day, but it's 60 kilometres. It's hard going because it's 20 k's a day. So if you're not used to walking 20 k's a day, it can be quite tough doing that back to back. The first day is incredibly uphill and steep. The second day is incredibly downhill through forest and tree roots, but beautiful because it's the goblin forest that I spoke about earlier. And then the last day is along the coast. So you do get alpine, coastal, and rainforest ticked off all in one trip. And we just have a map here for you. So if anyone wants to take a little screen grab or a little photo with their phone, this is where all of the trails are located that we've just had a mention of. So they are the Great Walks. And you can have a little bit of a grab of that if you like. Okay, moving on. Weather and seasons. I think I get asked a lot in my job, and over the past 25 years that I've been in the travel industry, is what do we do if it rains? And the first thing I say to most of our travelers is take a raincoat. The walks don't stop. Just because it's raining, the walk doesn't stop. If it's incredibly unsafe for you to travel and the walks are flooded like we have had, or the bridges wash away, or something happens in that respect, of course, we're going to keep your safety first of mind. But normally, if it's raining, you grab a raincoat, you make sure you've got the right gear, and you keep walking. It's incredibly beautiful being in a rainforest in the rain. But the Great Walk season generally is now from late October. So it actually kicks off next weekend officially, which is the Labour weekend here in New Zealand. And it runs through most of the time until the end of April. Some walks end a little bit earlier, some walks will end a little bit later, but generally we run through till the end of April. Summer by far the warmest, longest days and the busiest time. And autumn, cooler, stable weather, fewer crowds, great colours. And then in spring, we have the blooming landscapes, variable weather, snowmelt rivers. So really depends on when you can go. We like to say, spring and autumn because it's off that peak season of summer. Summer, you have to remember that Kiwis as well, if you're not from New Zealand, are on school holidays. It is summer holidays. It is Christmas, New Year. It is quite busy. So the sooner you can book anything, the better. And also, if you can go in that start or end of season, also great for us as well. Some wonderful shots here, very different sort of landscapes. You've got your beautiful beach and then you've got your snow-capped peaks as well. Guided versus self-guided. Well, that all depends on what kind of person you are and whether you like a group of people of like-minded travelers or whether you're quite happy self-navigating on your own. The big difference is, one obviously with a guide, one without a guide. One you can just go along with, relax a little bit. The guide takes control of everything, tells you about different features along the way, informs you what's happening day to day, takes your mind and your frustration out of organising your own trip, I guess, as well. On a self-guided walk, we organise everything for you. We provide you with all of your details. We give you maps and accessibility through an app. However, it is still up to you to navigate. So quite often, we find that husband and wife sometimes argue, sometimes friends will argue, sometimes it'll be, let's go this way, no, let's go this way. But if you have your wits about you and you know roughly how to follow a map, you'll be fine because we provide you with the app instructions as well. So self-guided or guided just depends on whether you like to be on your own or with another friend, or you prefer a larger group of like-minded travelers or a meet and greet and get to know some people along the way. And with or without a pack, again, all of our trips, we do, even with a pack, provide you with everything you need. You will bring your own gear, of course. Sometimes we can actually hire or have hireage of the gear for you. So we can organise that, especially if you're coming from afar and a distance. You don't want to carry a sleeping bag necessarily in your luggage. Luggage limitations these days applies on aeroplanes and things as well. So you want to limit what you're packing quite often. And initially, when we started Great Walks, it was very much a pack system. We decided that, it was going to be the Great Walks of New Zealand. It was going to be outdoors. Everyone wants to go with a pack. Well, the next year we sort of thought about it and went, actually, I myself prefer not having a pack. I prefer that I have quite nice accommodation and that people organise things for me and that I just have a day pack when I walk and enjoy. And so we have a combination of trips, some that are for those hardcore trekkers still and hikers and that want to carry their own gear and have all their own supplies and things and be that little bit more independent, I guess, but with all the organisation. Or some of us that, just like to take our little day pack and off we go and have a wander. So now I'm going to pass you through to Steve. Steve is going to talk you through the best of Kepler, Milford and Routeburn. This is one of our top trips. Steve, of course, is the director of and guide extraordinaire down in that beautiful region of New Zealand in this Fiordland. And he will talk you through this trip, what it is day to day, what you might be seeing along the way, what the trails are like. And so I'll hand it over to Steve.
Right, thanks, Natalie. So I'm Steve, and I am fortunate enough to be based down here in Fiordland. And you might have seen in the map where all the walks were situated that Natalie booked up. There's a bit of a cluster down here in Fiordland. So 4 of the 11 great walks are based in Fiordland National Park. Just a bit of side information, the national park is just under 5% of New Zealand's total land mass, so it's a huge chunk of land. And there's only one public road that goes in it, and that's the road to Milford Sound. So it's basically 3.3 million acres or 1.2 million hectare off wilderness. So it's an incredible landscape and very diverse. So with the particular package that Great Walks in New Zealand offer is the best of the Kepler, Milford and Routeburn track, 5 days. Well, day one is pretty much arriving in Queenstown and travelling down to Te Anau. Te Anau driving wise from the airport about 2 hours, but from say downtown Queenstown accommodation 2.5 hours. There's bus transport that gets you down here, so you don't have to worry too much about that. When you arrive, you check into your accommodation in Te Anau, and there's a good range of accommodation. The two distinction hotels that have great accommodation. So yeah, sort of I guess day one's arriving Queenstown, day two travelling down and getting settled into Te Anau. And day three is the first day's activity. So it's where I'll go into a bit more activity, a bit more, sorry, information. So the Kepler Heli Hike. So that's obviously on the Kepler track. The track itself is set up as 60 kilometres, 4 days, 3 nights. But the portion that we do is we go up onto Luxmore Hut, which is pretty much the first day. Most people walk from the control gates up to Luxmore Hut when they're walking the full track. We don't walk up, we take a helicopter up. So it's a great experience. It's only a short flight, maybe 7, 8 minutes from just out of Te Anau, and the flight takes you right up to. There's a picture there of the helicopter on the helicopter pad up at Luxmore Hut. So straight away you've got to just over 3,000 feet above sea level, about 850 meters. And from there, we sort of get organised. There are toilets at the hut if people need them, and then we spend about 2 hours walking the Alpine area, which is you might see that slide up above the helicopter. Beautiful views. It's a stunning location overlooking Lake Te Anau and the Murchison Mountains. It really is beautiful. Even in sort of windy, marginal weather, it's still fantastic just being up there in the alpine environment. So yeah, we like I say, we spend a couple of hours up above the hut. We tend to come back to the hut where we have lunch. So the helicopter lands roughly around 10 a.m. at the hut. Back at the hut, 12:30 for lunch. And then we start the 8 kilometre or 5 mile descent down to Broad Bay, which is on the edge of Lake Te Anau. So that descent takes well, it's 8 kilometres, 5 miles. It takes roughly 2.5 hours. So we tend to leave the hut, around about 12:30, 1 o'clock, or about probably more like 1 o'clock to be fair. And we have a nice sort of relaxing walk. The water taxi that takes us back to Te Anau is around about 4 to 4:15. But the walk down, it takes you through the open beech forest, past some beautiful limestone bluffs. And it's like the change of vegetations. You're in the alpine area above the hut, obviously. Then you're walking down through the various vegetation zones right down to Lake Te Anau, which is about 200 meters above sea level, it's about 640 feet. So it's a really beautiful walk down. So for that particular day, like you're walking anywhere between, usually on average, 12, 13 kilometers, 14 kilometers, and you're descending. By the time you walk above the hut to walking down to Broad Bay, you're descending maybe 3.5 to 4,000 feet. So yeah, it is, you just have to be conscious. It's a very good track, but it is a bit of a workout for the knee joints. There's poles provided, or you're welcome to bring your own, obviously. But it's a fantastic walk. The views up in the Alpine area in particular are outstanding. So that particular day, by the time you get the water taxi back over to Te Anau, you're back at your accommodation, I don't know, 4:30, quarter to 5. Actually, just to jump forward to the start of the day, we actually they do a briefing to start the day, so you get the full talk on the three days walks, you could say, and then you head off to the helicopter. So that's the Kepler Heli Hike. The next day, we have an early start and we head into Milford Sound. And obviously, most of you probably would have heard of that. So we pick people up at 6:30 a.m. and we pretty much drive straight through to Milford. We're in there for about 8:15, and we sort of gather all up together there and get organised. And we take a water taxi over to a place called Sandfly Point, which, if you walk the full Milford track, is like the finishing line, you could say. But we're walking on that end of the Milford track. So from Giant Gate up to the destination, which is the Giant Gate waterfall. It's a beautiful waterfall. It's about 5.5 kilometers, and obviously 5.5 kilometers back to Sandfly Point again. So it's 11 kilometers or 7 miles walking on the morning on the Milford track. And yeah, the Milford track very different to the Kepler track. It's on the western side of the Southern Alps. Lake Chiaonau, and the Kepler track is on the eastern side of the Southern Alps. And just roughly, Chiaonau gets about 1.5 meters of rainfall a year, 54 inches. Milford Sound averages 7 to 8 meters of rainfall a year, so about 280 to 320 inches. So far wetter, but that gives you a totally different landscape. So it's very, very lush West Coast rainforest. And it's just stunning. The moss, the lichens all over the trees. It's spectacular. Um, Very good wildlife, bird life in particular, on that section of the Milford Track. Yeah, it's not unusual to see weka, kaka, kakariki, numerous bird species. So it's good if you're keen on birding as well. There's some great opportunity, and also Theo, the native blue duck, which is quite a rare bird. There's a reasonable chance we see those as well. So that particular walk, we'll be back at Sandfly Point again. So we're roughly on the track about 8:45, roughly back at Sandfly Point about 1:45. Water taxi brings you back over to the main terminal building at Milford Sound, so you're back there for about 1 o'clock. If you have got a bit wet, you've got the opportunity there to change into some dry clothes. You can just leave those in the vehicle that takes you into Milford. And then we join the boat cruise between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. on Milford Sound. So a 2-hour cruise on a nice smaller boat. And yeah, it's awesome. Milford just speaks for itself. It's stunning scenery, sheer vertical cliff face either side. Off where you normally always see New Zealand fur seals. You can see bottlenose dolphins, but they're a bit like the weather. They come and go just depending on when they're feeding. And this time of year, mid-September to mid-December, there's a very good chance you'll also see the Fiordland crested penguin, which is the second rarest penguin in the world. So yeah, some good wildlife spotting opportunities on the cruise as well. The cruise, it's about 8 kilometers from the terminal building out to the open Tasman Sea, and obviously 8 kilometers back in again. And we get you back to Te Anau roughly about 5:30. So that day's 6:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Big day, and all focused on Milford Sound, but incredible day. You took off the Milford track and the Milford Sound cruise on the same day. So the next morning we get you up not so early. We let you have a bit of a sleep in, and 8:30 a.m. that day we'll pick you up for the Routeburn track, the Key Summit walk as part of the Routeburn track. And that day we've got a bit more time heading up the Milford Road, so we can do some stops at points of interest, which you would have driven by the day before travelling into Milford Sound. So you've got time to do some of these stops, the odd short walk as well. The Divide car park is where the Routeburn track commences from the Milford Road side of the Milford track. And as the name suggests, it is sitting right on the Southern Alps dividing range. So the car park is about 520 metres, about 1,500 feet above sea level. And the walk up to Key Summit takes, to walk up 1.5 hours at a comfortable pace. And it takes you up through the beech forest, the forest, and then you come out into the alpine area up onto Key Summit. And again, just stunning views all around up the Darren Mountains, into the Hollyford Valley. Key Summit itself is quite unique because it actually has 3 valleys running off it. Most ridges have 2 valleys, but it's just how the glaciers form that area. You've got the Hollyford Valley, the Greenstone Valley, and the Eglinton Valley that run off Key Summit. So it's quite, just a little interesting fact as well. The Routeburn track itself has been operating since the 1960s. And like I say, the Key Summit is one of the highlights of that particular track. So if it's a beautiful day, like the slide suggests, which we do get, we normally have lunch up on Key Summit, and beautiful spot. And then we wander back down to the car park again, and then we'll head off and do maybe a 30-minute walk at another location on the Milford Road, just to experience another area and touch on another bit of different forested area. And we get you back to Te Anau that day at about 4:30 in the afternoon. So they're the 3 walks. Awesome walks, all very different, and that's the beauty of this particular product is you're getting almost like a highlights of those 3, which are very well-known tracks, but you're almost doing the highlights of them, and you're getting back obviously to a nice, comfortable bed at night, and then regathering in the morning and heading off again. And lunch is provided each day for you. So yeah, it's a great trip. And obviously the final night back in Te Anau again, and then the transport back through to Queenstown on the final day. So easy for me to say, but I think it's an outstanding product. And yeah, not many people go. Well, in fact, I can't think of anyone who's gone home disappointed. It's outstanding. So
Totally agree.
yeah,
Thanks, Steve.
yeah,
Even though Steve, when we did it, probably
yes.
picked the most beautiful of beautiful days where we had blizzard conditions and snow and wind and barely landed the helicopter, but it was great.
We
We
get
had
the
a
odd day.
memorable experience.
Yeah, we get the odd day like that.
Yeah, and it was stunning even then,
Yeah,
we thoroughly enjoyed it.
yes.
So Q&As, we're going to open the floor, but first I'm going to actually give you a couple of things. So what happens if I get injured the week before a trip? We always suggest that, especially if you're traveling, regardless of whether you're in New Zealand and a New Zealander or whether you're international coming into New Zealand, that you do have travel insurance. Kiwis will always say to us, well, we're in New Zealand, we don't need travel insurance, but ACC will not cover you. For those Kiwis that might be joining us tonight, they will cover you if you injure yourself. Yes, they will help you with your rehabilitation, but anything prior to that, if you cannot actually physically go on your trip, they won't cover any of the costs that you've already paid out. Um, so travel insurance is one of the most key things. I actually travel all the time with travel insurance, even here domestically in New Zealand. Single supplements, what do they cost? Each of our trips does have two things, single supplement or single traveler surcharge. Single supplement generally is if you want your own room on a trip. And sometimes if you're traveling in a group, there might be an odd number. And normally the trips are based on a twin share. So we do need to have one twin and a single. So you'll pay a single supplement. Sometimes we get two people and each one wants their own room. So again, you each pay for your own single supplement. Single traveler is a little bit different in that a lot of the trips are dependent on transfer numbers, minimum numbers to run a trip. So if you are on your own completely, we do have a single traveller surcharge that covers those sorts of things in regards to those transfers and things to make sure that you can still do your trip. If you're ever in doubt, you just give us a call or give us an email and we can absolutely help with deciphering which one you need and how much that might be. And what happens when the weather inhibits us from walking, such as a storm? Unless the tracks are actually physically closed either by DOC, by New Zealand government, by us deeming it that it's unsafe for you to travel, you will still likely travel if it's raining. If it's a full hurricane and it's unsafe for you to do so, then we would quickly either try to get you off the trail or we would be looking to divert you, potentially looking on the Tongariro crossing. It does happen quite often where today might be terrible, tomorrow might be terrible, but the next day might be fine. So there are options. And again, you just need to talk to any one of us with regard to those. But we can open the floor. If anyone has any other questions for either myself or Steve or a combination of both, we can jump in and answer those for you.
Thank you so much to Nat and Steve again. Absolute pleasure. We learnt so much, and I hope,
And thank you all for attending and for taking time
yes,
out.
yes. Thanks for joining us. See you guys next time.
Thanks, everyone.